Hey, everybody. Before we begin today's show, let me point out something that most headlines are missing. The smart money is shifting. Global banks are increasing their gold holdings. Countries are trading outside the US dollar, and inflation continues to wear down your savings. American Alternative Assets has been helping people move a portion of their retirement into physical gold for over a decade. Right now, they're offering a new report. It's called Gold's Next Move that explains what's changing and how you can protect what you have earned. You'll also receive their wealth preservation guide and find out how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Go to tomlovesgold.com or call 855-450-GOLD. That is tomlovesgold.com or 855-450-4653. Do it today.
Welcome to Real Clear Politics on SiriusXM for Friday, November 21st. I'm Andrew Walworth, and joining me are RCP President and co-founder Tom Bevan and Washington Bureau Chief Carl Cannon. Well, gentlemen, sedition is in the air, at least according to President Donald Trump. It all started when 6 Democratic lawmakers released this video calling on service members not to follow illegal orders. So let's start there. Here's a bit of that video.
Like us, you all swore an oath
to protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
but from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution.
We know this is hard,
and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
the Army,
our Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
And know that we have your back.
So the president responded with the Truth Social post, and he said seditious behavior, punishable by death. And then he reposted a message that said, hang them, George Washington would. And then Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan fired back. Here's her video post.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin, senator from Michigan, former CIA officer. Earlier today, President Trump threatened myself and a number of other service and veteran lawmakers with arrest, trial, and death because he didn't agree with a video we put out this week. This really isn't about those of us who made the video. This is about who we are as Americans and how we're going to engage with people who we disagree with. I would hope that people of all backgrounds, Democrat, Republican, Independent, would agree that threatening death for people you disagree with is beyond the pale of who we are as Americans.
So, Carl, quite the war of words. I thought we were trying to lower the temperature in Washington, but apparently not so much this week. What do you make of the exchange?
Well, Alyssa Slotkin should know better. She seems to be the ringleader. You had these 6 lawmakers. Mark Kelly, he knows better too. Jason Crow, I don't know what he knows because he gave an interview on CNN and he seemed limited in his understanding of what they had done. I'm not going to defend the president's rhetoric. Maybe Tom can kick him in the shins over that. I want to stay with what these Democrats did because what they did was destabilizing, and they had this video. They're very serious questions, and I've raised them on this show with you guys. We've discussed it. I'm not sure that those attacks on the boats off Venezuela are legal. I'm pretty sure they violate international law. I don't think they even maybe comport with our law. I've grave questions about them. And you can raise them. And if Mark Kelly and Alyssa Slotkin and Jason Crow and the others wanted to raise them, they should have. But they did a campaign-style video basically encouraging people to disobey their commanding officers. That's and interpret the Constitution themselves. So all 2.3 million or whatever, all the people in the armed forces of the United States are supposed to make their own judgments about what's a constitutional order. They're not constitutional scholars. Constitutional scholars differ on this. You couldn't have an effective U.S. military if this was the standard. And they said it, and they did this unbidden. This video is irresponsible. I think they must know it. They've all been complaining about how it was portrayed. They've been complaining about the pushback. And Jason Crow gave an interview and said, it's quite clear we're not calling on anybody to disobey an illegal order, not right now. Nothing about what he said was clear, and nothing about this video is clear. And it's aimed at Donald Trump. It's aimed at this policy, but it was an irresponsible way to go about it, to do this video and pretend that because they served in either the CIA or the armed forces that they have a right to tell active duty military to disobey orders, and tell them they had an obligation to do it. And they didn't say what orders they're talking about. It's a prescription for anarchy. And I found it shocking. And so I'm more worried about that than this over the top rhetoric. And they complained bitterly that Trump called on them to be killed. That's not quite what he did. They called on the U.S. military to sort of stop having discipline in the ranks. And they should have anticipated this blowback. And I think they're going to end up walking back from what they did and said.
You think they'll walk back?
I
Tom?
disagree with.
Yeah. What do you think?
I agreed with pretty much.
I think they're going to have to.
I agreed with everything Carl said up until that last comment. Look, this was a deeply irresponsible thing for these folks to do. And yes, Trump responded over the top. He gets kicked in the shins and he punches in the face, and
I wish he wouldn't always make things worse.
And he can't help himself, right? And that becomes the story. But I saw some of this discussion yesterday, and Democrats and folks on the left were defending this video and saying they never called for anyone to disobey the commander-in-chief's orders, which is like splitting hairs and might be technically true, but obviously not in the spirit of what that video is about. That video is about ginning up the deep state and Democratic partisans within the government to do what happened in the first Trump term. Miles Taylor was just on CNN the other day, the guy who wrote the book Anonymous, who said he was proud to undermine the president. Someone called him an insurrectionist, and he said, proudly, I did that proudly. And they're not having that they haven't had for the first 10 months of Trump's second term. It's been much more disciplined. It's been much more less leak prone. And he's done a lot of replacing of folks. But it's almost like they were upset that they weren't getting enough resistance from inside the government to Donald Trump. And that's what this video was aimed at. And so I agree with Carl. I thought it was really irresponsible. And of course, Trump took the bait, and that became the news story. And that always happens. But I think his initial reaction of being offended by this is a human reaction. It was offensive.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Since Tom didn't go far enough kicking Trump in the shins, I feel obliged to say that the President of the United States violated what's known generally, in my family, as Cannon's first law. And Cannon's first law is...
I know what a Cannon's first law is. Can I tell everybody what it is?
Yeah.
Because you've told it to me 3,000 times since we've worked together.
Well,
never
usually
make
when you're on
yourself
Twitter,
the story.
after you're posting on Twitter, you mean?
Yeah. Cannon's first law is never make yourself the story.
Never needlessly make your own behavior the issue.
Okay.
That's what Donald Trump did.
These people, they're all veterans and they're former national security officials. But Tom, you brought this to our attention this morning at our morning meeting, and I thought we should play a little bit of this. This is Carl Higbie. He's a host on Newsmax. He's a former Navy SEAL. He served 2 tours of duty in Iraq, and I think we should just hear his view of the potential impact of politicians telling soldiers to second-guess orders. Here's Carl Higbie.
It made every soldier in Iraq and Afghanistan second-guess everything. Hesitate to prosecute that IED. How many people did that kill? Apprehending terrorists, or even pulling the trigger when they needed to. Hesitated for their own safety in a courtroom that might not come. Stuff like this gets people killed. It creates stupid rules of engagement, some of which killed my friends personally, because they want to play political grandstand games with no intention of ever backing the soldier up when he does the bidding that they subtly encouraged. This is why people hate politicians. They pop off like there's some moral authority without listing a single specific thing that Trump has done illegally.
Pretty powerful stuff, Carl. What do you make of that?
Yeah, and I agree, not just because his first name is Carl, same as mine. Listen, I do not think these attacks on the Venezuelan boats are legal. I don't. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, and I'm not a veteran of the military, but I'm very uncomfortable with it. But there's a process that has to be followed here. And you can't have one of the two great political parties in this country, and when I say great, I mean in size, not in moral standing, you can't have them encouraging people to not follow orders. And no matter how many times they claim that's not what they did, it's exactly what they did. Moreover, they said you're obliged to not follow orders that you deem unconstitutional. The military, as I said again, it can't work that way. And Carl Higbee is saying, not only that, it's dangerous to the troops to introduce this element. It's dangerous. It's a dangerous thing to have done. And these 6 Democrats, their party should distance themselves from this. And
Not going to happen.
They can probably not, Tom. But they can talk about Trump's irresponsible rhetoric all they want, but it doesn't change what they did. They started this. They started something, and I don't think. I guess we'll get the polling on it. I'd be very surprised if this is a popular thing to tell enlisted men and women that not to follow orders. I'm speechless. Well, I guess I'm not speechless. I've been ranting.
It's a good rant from Carl. Good way to end the week. But go ahead, Tom.
Well, I encourage people to watch that full clip of Carl Higbee. I think we have it on Real Clear Politics this afternoon, and because I mean, you could tell the indignation in his voice. He was definitely a righteous rant. And the part that we didn't play, which you when you get the full context, is he was one of the soldiers that apprehended the Butcher of Baghdad, who was portrayed in the movie American Sniper, and they were accused of wrongdoing. They did what they were told to do, and then he was almost turned over to, there was a moment where they thought they were going to get turned over to the Iraqi government to stand trial, which would have been a total disaster. Yeah. But they were put on trial and they were acquitted. And so it's the other side of this. And I think Carl is exactly right that, I mean, I just wonder what Democrats would say if Republicans made a video telling service members under Joe Biden, the commander-in-chief, to, not to
leave Afghanistan, to stay there.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, it's kind of nutty when you think about it. And but again, Carl, I think you're wrong about. I don't think they're gonna walk it back. I don't think anybody's going to distance themselves from it. If anything, they've leaned into it and they've made Trump the issue, and it's all about his fascism and authoritarianism, and so it's another just a sort of low point in our politics these days.
Well, I want to talk about another video. Actually, before we leave that, I'll just say one thing about that video too, which is I wish we would stop doing these stupid videos where they cut from head to head and finish one another's sentence.
This is the producer and Andy's coming out like
it is just beyond parody at this point, and I just.
But don't you like it when they do like
stop it?
Guantanamo?
Imagine.
Yeah, Imagine around the world at Guantanamo they play. It's kind of sweet when they do that.
That's sweet. I like that. But anyway, look, talking about video, I want to play another video here, which is a little cliched as well. But another Democrat has thrown his hat in the ring in the race in California for the governorship. It's not really a surprise. It's Eric Swalwell. He made it official. So here's a bit of his campaign announcement.
I'm Eric Swalwell, and it's this simple. The next governor of California has 2 jobs. 1, keep the worst president in our history out of our homes, out of our streets, and out of our lives.
Buying food at the grocery store is getting more expensive.
No one will keep Californians safer than I will. No one. Nancy Pelosi selected me for the Intelligence Committee and to help lead the impeachment of a corrupt president. Californians will never bend the knee. And 2, bring us a new California. California is the 4th largest economy in the world. So shouldn't we be a state where you can take your first job, have your first kid, and buy your first home in the same decade? And one where you can fill that home with food and flood it with light.
So, Carl, I will just say one other thing. The producer, and meanwhile, that's a needle drop, that background music, which has been used 1,000 times in ads because I believe it's public domain. But go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, well, Swalwell, he's still in his 30s, I guess, and he ran for president. People forget this. And he sort of became a source of some ridicule among conservatives. He's
why is he a source of ridicule?
You sleep with one lousy Chinese spy, Tom,
fall into one honey pot, and it's all over.
anyway, he's this unofficial competition among Democrats to see who hate Trump the most and be the most intemperate and say the most, and to my way of thinking, act the most like Trump at his worst. Swalwell's always been, in the top 10 percentile. He's always there. If you really loathe Donald Trump, you might gravitate towards this campaign. But that's the number one job of the governor of California, is not to resist the president of the United States. It is to do the second thing he said, to make California a place where people can bring back the California dream, where you could go to college. When I was a kid, junior college was free. The state system was very affordable. Housing was affordable. Taxes were low. None of that's true today. It's become.
And the Democrats are going to bring that back, Tom.
Well, I think an objective person, Joel Kotkin, who's a demographer and futurist and writes for us occasionally, I think he would say that the Democrats caused these problems. It'd be nice to have a Democrat fix it, but he's going to have to, Swalwell and these others are going to have to come up with specific things they do differently.
Tom, what do you think of Swalwell throwing his hat in the ring?
I think that first of all, he made it very clear. He announced on Jimmy Kimmel, which gives you an idea of where his head's at. And I thought it was very telling that there are two jobs, he says. And the first job, the one he listed first, was not fixing the economy and making California great and all that. It was resisting Trump, right? And the fact that he had impeached him or led the impeachment of Donald Trump is his badge of honor that he is wearing. So that just gives you a sense of where he is. There's a guy I follow on X. His handle is Bonchi from Red State. And he said, 40 million people in California, and the two leading candidates for governor, one slept with a Chinese spy and the other one poured scalding mashed potatoes on her husband's head. Californians should be able to do better, but this is the state of California politics right now. And I think he will be a factor in this race. I don't think there's any question about that.
All right, we're going to do a quick lightning round because we want to talk about this earlier in the week. But George Conway says he might be running for Jerry Nadler's seat in New York 12. That covers Midtown Manhattan. The Daily Beast headline, I have to read it, is Kellyanne's Trump-hating ex, eyes run against Nepo baby.
That's Jack Schlossberg, I assume.
Yeah, right. So we got 30 seconds here, Carl. Quickly, what do you think of George Conway getting in?
Well, we talk about Swalwell hating Trump. This guy, Conway, hates Trump so much he blew up his marriage over it. So those are pretty good bona fides.
Tom,
exactly. If Trump hating is the currency, this guy's a billionaire. We'll see what happens in that race. It is our politics these days. Trump has just absolutely broken people's brains, and George Conway is one of them.
Yeah, well, there's about 10 people already running for this seat, so it'll be interesting to keep an eye on. You're listening to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. I'm Andrew Walworth. I'm here with Carl and Tom. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after these words. Guys, there are dueling stories on the front page of the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal this morning. The Post has a headline which reads, quote, "How Billionaires Took Over American Politics." And they say, quote, "The concentration of wealth among the richest Americans is unlike anything in history, and so is the billionaires' influence in politics." And meanwhile, over in the Journal, the headline is, quote, "The middle class is buckling under almost 5 years of persistent inflation." So, Tom, are we really becoming two Americas? And do billionaires have too much influence in politics these days?
Well, the Washington Post piece is really interesting, and I recommend it to people and they also have a list of the top 20 billionaires and how much they've donated. And it's maybe a little bit more Republican than Democrat, but there are a lot of Democrats on there who've given a lot of money as well. But it shows that the giving of these billionaires has increased from de minimis in like 2000 to over $1 billion in the last cycle. And we saw, Kamala Harris spent $1.2 billion. There's a lot of money in politics, and a lot of it's coming from these people who are fabulously wealthy. And so in that sense, I think there is a worry. And one of the people on the list, by the way, is J.B. Pritzker, who has spent $250 million to win election and re-election, and is running again. I don't know that he's going to have to spend that much this time around, but the idea that, he just basically bought his seat, and by the way, displaced another guy who was, I'm not sure if Bruce Rauner was a billionaire or not. He might have been, but he was also had hundreds of millions of dollars. And we're seeing more and more of that. And yeah, it's a problem. I think the Wall Street Journal piece, though, is the most significant piece. This is what it's all about. We talk about affordability and all. This is what our politics is about. Whoever can help the middle class, and we talk about inflation and the price of beef is X and the price of eggs are. I mean, if you look at in the aggregate over the last 5 years since COVID, but even going back probably even before that, these things like education, the cost of college, the cost of healthcare, the cost of insurance for your house and your car, and all of these things that make up a family budget, they've gone up astronomically. Stuff is just so much more expensive these days than it was 5 years ago. That people are, the middle class. Even if you're making $100,000 or $200,000, if you live in a big city, it's not enough. It is, and I know people say, "Well, $200,000 is a lot of money." Well, it is if you live in Dubuque, Iowa. But if you're living in New York City or San Francisco or LA or Chicago, any major city in America, Seattle, it doesn't. You're getting taxed, and you're getting. It just doesn't go as far. So there's a big band of what you would call the middle class that everybody is struggling.
Yeah. They base their definition of the middle class on, I guess, what Pew Research says, which is, I think, $66,000 to $200,000, depending on where you live, which is kind of shocking that $200,000 in America is considered middle class. But if you're, like you say, if you're living in New York, Chicago, Washington, San Francisco, that's about where you would be, and it's not uncommon for two people with sort of, each making $100,000 a piece, a couple, and still not being able to make it.
If you got a couple kids and you're living in a big city, it's,
Well, think about this. If you live in Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, I don't know, Chicago, Tom does. If it's a family income of $200,000 and you pay taxes, and you pay high state taxes and local taxes and real estate taxes, and so by the time your disposable income is closer to 120 or 130,000, not 200,000, and if you have childcare costs, those have gone up astronomically. That's $3,000 or $4,000. I'm not talking about private schools. I'm just talking about getting your kids looked after, and you start to realize you've got a disposable income that, and then these high mortgage rates. It's difficult. And what's happened, the Wall Street Journal, besides all the price of goods and services going up, taxes are higher and wages have not kept pace. So Tom says it's a whole ball of wax. I'm not sure I'd go that far. I think crime is also on people's minds. We can talk about this latest horrific case in Chicago. But Andy, you mentioned these billionaires. Well, one of them, George Soros and his son Alex Soros, and they have this foundation. They've given all this money. I became familiar with them, much more familiar with them when they spent like $1 million in jurisdictions surrounding Washington in local prosecutors' races, like in Fairfax and Arlington. And they went out and solicited and recruited prosecutors who wouldn't prosecute, who are in social justice warriors who don't believe in even bail, that even violent criminals should be bonded out, shouldn't have to wait trial in jail. And Alex Soros, George Soros, as far as I know, has never set foot in Fairfax County. Mm-hmm. So what right does a guy who doesn't live in Virginia, doesn't have to live in these places where these crime policies in Chicago, the prosecutor is a Soros prosecutor. There's about, I think, 100 of them around the country. Nobody knows for sure. And it's a warping influence on the political system. In Citizens United, the Supreme Court ruled that people have a right to, even rich people, they have a right to have their say. They do, and I get that. But out of that grew this system. Is like a Frankenstein monster where you can spend $1 million just in local races and just overwhelm the local Democratic Party the local Republican Party to put, a progressive in to have your social engineering theories, play out on the streets. And there are real victims.
Yeah. Well, let me just give 2 cheers for Billionaires here, since just for the sake of.
I wondered about this, Andy. You sandbagged us a little bit here.
No. So they do point out in this Washington Post piece, it's pretty shocking. 1 in every 13 campaign dollars now comes from just the 100 richest people in America. Now that's amazing to me. That's a great statistic. It's one of those facts that's almost too good to be checked, but let's say they're right. Okay, that sounds bad, but if all they're doing is canceling one another out, are they really affecting politics that much? Because you have, as Carl points out, you've got Democrats who are pouring money in, and you've got Republicans who are pouring money in, and maybe it just raises the cost of campaigns and puts more money in the pockets of media buyers and
TV stations.
But does it really affect our politics, Tom?
Yes and no. I mean, there is certainly, I think you could make the case when you get to it. Money is the mother's milk of politics, as Carl often points out. But when you get to a situation where there is a point of diminishing returns, particularly on television, where all of the ads, it's just saturated, right? So if that takes $5 million, spending another $15 million on TV is not going to do that much for you. Where money does, I think, matter is in the organizing and getting, paying people to be on the ground, knocking on doors, and I mean, in the last few cycles, harvesting ballots, quite frankly, in a lot of these states, and getting your ground game operation, funneling money into that, and that's what a lot of these dollars have gone to, and so and that does matter and does have impact, whether you think it's legal or illegal or ethical or unethical. There has been, I think those dollars, again, at some point it's diminishing returns, and we've seen that in a couple races. I mean, I'm thinking back to the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin not too long ago, I think last year, and they spent like $50 million or something, $55 million on a Supreme Court race. I mean, it was outrageous how much money was spent. And Scott Walker in that state before. It's just
wait a minute.
It's
why should someone who doesn't live in Wisconsin be able to contribute a single dollar to the Supreme Court race in that state? I know there's money in
called
politics.
freedom of speech, Carl.
Yes,
First
Carl.
Amendment.
Boy.
You say that, but the states have outlawed that. That's not that. No, that would pass muster. In Montana, you can't give more than $100 to a candidate. You have to have.
But you can spend on your PAC all you want, Carl. Please.
And Andy, what you're saying isn't quite right anyway. There's no corollary to these Soros prosecutors. There's nobody out there giving these prosecutors. These are lawyers nobody ever heard of. But and I don't disparage them. They're progressive lawyers, Democrats, usually in the defense bar.
I'll disparage the one in Chicago if you like.
Okay, but the one here, the one in Arlington, the one in Fairfax, there was one in Loudoun. I'm not faulting these people exactly, because we're talking about billionaires' influence. But they overwhelmed the system. They spent 10 or 20 or 30 times as much. There was no countervailing force, and so So I just think it's a warping influence on our politics. And
what's the solution, Carl?
Well, unless they want to revisit
Blue Ribbon
citizens,
Commission and campaign finance reform.
United.
Go for it, Carl.
Well, yeah, I'd like to see some finance. Sure, some campaign finance laws. I'd like to see you have to live in a community to donate to a local race. Sure, I'd favor that law.
Tom, back to the Wall Street Journal piece and the problems of the middle class. There's inflation. There are higher taxes. There's so many parts of our life where the cost of living is going up. I'm just wondering, where do you start? And interest rates. We should talk about that as well, because people are using these credit cards and their interest rates are 20-30% now.
Right. Well, there's so many different levers to this, right? And Carl harps on the debt and the deficit. I mean, that's obviously a huge part of it. Government spending. We need more growth. Trump always bashes the Fed over the interest rate. You're right. I mean, we got to but getting rates down becomes inflationary at some point. And so, I mean, I think the key is for the middle class is that, and Carl touched on this, wages have to outpace inflation. That's the only way that the middle class feels like they're getting ahead. And
or at least keep pace.
Well, yeah, but I mean, ideally they'd be getting ahead. They'd feel like they were getting ahead, and that's the key to this whole thing. Is you want wages to be high, and so the administration thinks that they're putting in place the different pieces of this that by the time the elections roll around in November, they'll be in a pretty good spot, and that inflation is down. With the mass deportations, they're taking pressure off of downward push on wages for low skilled workers and the like. So there are a lot of things that the administration is pointing to. But again, as we've said before on this program, just saying, hey guys, looking at the middle class and saying, hey, just give us a little bit more time, just be patient with us. The middle class is not patient because they've been getting their ass kicked for 5 years. It is tough out there for a lot of families, and they're sick of it.
Right. All right. Well, guys, we're going to have to take a quick break, but I do want to invite our listeners and our viewers. If you've got ideas on this, send us a note on the YouTube channel or in the comment section on the apps. I'd be curious to find out what our listeners and viewers think about what the government should be doing about these problems, if anything at all. Anyway, you're listening to Real Clear Politics on Sirius XM. I'm Andrew Walworth, and I'm with Carl Cannon and Tom Bevan. And when we come back, we'll be joined by Josh Gottheimer. He is a congressman from New Jersey, and maybe he's got some views on this as well. Don't go away. Joining us now is Democratic Representative from New Jersey's 5th District, Josh Gottheimer. Congressman, welcome to Real Clear Politics.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Well, great to have you here. A number of things to talk about, but I want to start with this afternoon's Oval Office meeting. It's going to be between New York Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani and President Trump. Here's what you said about Mamdani on October 25th during the campaign. You said, quote, Mamdani is a job-killing socialist. He's not a Democrat. He shouldn't be in the Democratic Party. He's an admitted socialist. He should be in the Socialist Party. So let's just start there. Do you still feel that way? And
I don't know. Was it not clear enough? By the way, I was on the House.
How do you really feel, Congressman?
I was on the House floor this morning reiterating that because we voted today against socialism. And as a Democrat, I'm against socialism. And, any kind of, there's a lot of candidates now running as socialists. I don't get it. They're not Democrats. I'm a proud capitalist who believes in doing everything we can to get costs down, childcare costs, healthcare costs, food costs, you name it. The Democratic Socialists of America, what they've been pushing is, closing prisons, letting people out, defunding police. None of that makes any sense to me. And so, they should go to the Socialist Party where they belong.
But Congressman,
I was just going to say, can I ask just one other question? Is what do you expect to come out of today's meeting?
I mean, I'd love to be a fly on the wall. I don't know about you, but I'm not really sure why the president's hosting a socialist. But that's on him. Maybe he's deciding to change parties. I don't know.
But Congressman, Mamdani did win on affordability, and Democrats all across the country, including Abigail Spanberger, was talking about it.
Yeah.
What about that as being something that a concern that has to be addressed? We just talked about this Wall Street Journal about the middle class is getting crushed by inflation. You live in northern New Jersey. You represent northern New Jersey. What are your constituents telling you? And what do you think the effect of Mamdani in New York City is going to have on? Are you going to have a lot of refugees coming your way?
I'm very clear. Like, come one, come all. You hate socialism, move to Jersey. The water's warm. We'll have you. I'm all about lowering taxes and doing everything we can to get costs down, standing up to Trump's tariffs, which I think are killing people and killing our, not just families, but small businesses. We got to get these health insurance premiums down, food prices down, childcare issues. To me, you're exactly right. What people are focused on, what they talk to me about in every diner, grocery store I hang out in, it's what we can do to get the cost down. We got to make life more affordable. People are getting crushed. That's why it made no sense to me why we were the only ones fighting to get these health insurance premiums down, and my colleagues on the other side, for some reason, are not focused on this issue. But I really believe, and as Abigail saw and Mikey saw and so many of us it saw across the country in those elections in places you never would have believed could ever elect a Democrat, right? In Georgia and Pennsylvania, you saw it's all about people saying like, hey, President Trump, wake up, man. You got to focus on getting costs down. Stop actually making our lives more expensive. And so I don't understand what's going on in the White House, but if I were them, I'd focus on what we've been focused on, which is getting costs down.
Congressman, you and I met at the house of Nancy Jacobson and Mark Penn over dinner a couple of years ago. We were talking about, bipartisanship and this problem solvers caucus that you were a part of. And when you talk about getting those healthcare costs down, that led to the shutdown, or there's a pretext for the shutdown. I don't know, but I don't know the original motivations of the leadership. But it became what the government shutdown was about. It became the focal issue. What are you doing? I know that you're always doing something to try and get people to act sane in Washington, but it's an uphill fight.
A losing battle, man.
Yeah. But what are you doing, and who are you reaching out to on the other side, and what is the Problem Solvers Caucus doing to make sure we don't have another shutdown in January?
Also, listen, to give people some hope, the good news is a bunch of us, Democrats and Republicans, by the way, not just in the House, but in the Senate, have been working together for months focused on getting these health insurance premiums down. And just this week, about 20 or so of us, about half Democrat and Republican, came together. We got some pizzas. I brought some beer and talked for more than an hour about where we can agree on extending the ACA tax credits, to help get these premiums down for a lot of families who, you got 24 million families who've gotten these notices in the last month or so about who are on the ACA, whose premiums are going to go up on an average of 26% at least. In Jersey, some up to 175%. You're talking about $20,000 for a family of four of health insurance premiums increases. So that's untenable. And a lot of my colleagues, Democrats and Republicans, are hearing the same thing from their constituents, right? So they're focused on, well, what can we do about it? So we've been working on new bipartisan legislation, and there's different bills out there that I've signed on to, but I'm really trying to work with others. Jen Kiggins and I from Virginia, she's a Republican from Virginia. We've been helping lead this group with others to find common ground. I've been talking to senators who've been working on this in a bipartisan way to see where they're trying to land, because as you know, as part of this agreement after the shutdown, there's going to be a vote in December guaranteed to the Democrats on whatever bill they want. What I don't want is a performative vote over there that's just a partisan vote, for the sake of playing politics. What I want is actually, and what we've all been talking about, is let's actually propose something that can get done, that can get 60 votes in the Senate, that can come over to the House and solve the problem versus, just playing games. And I know that's a lot of this place, but many of us don't think that's the way this should operate.
Well, Josh, we have something writing on it. Tom and I, we have a bottle of wine. I say, I bet you'd be able to get a compromise that would pass both houses. So please do work on this, because
I will, man. If you cut me in with a bottle of Tito's,
do you think,
man?
Congressman, there was some reporting that Donald Trump had made an offer to Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer about that he wanted to get something done on this, on healthcare. Do you think that there is some appetite in the White House to find some sort of solution that can get through Congress?
I would hope. There's been a lot of back channeling that we've been doing through some of my Republican colleagues to the White House. There wasn't, the president had set up this scenario where he said, we won't have a conversation and negotiate until you open the government back up. It was like this game of chicken that went on, which I didn't think was very constructive. I was like, let's just get in a room. And I kept asking, well, let's just all get in a room with the president. He's this great deal maker. He just, that's what he self-proclaimed, of course. But, listen, he just did helped with move Middle East peace along pretty far. He got a lot of hostages home, and I give him credit for that. And if we can get a lot of hostages home, we haven't gotten them all home yet, but we got all the hostages home, we certainly can solve this. So I just said, let's all get in a room. And they've not taken us up on that yet. We've talked to them. I've had conversations with them, but we're just not there yet. And I'm hoping that the president's willing to sit down with us. Part of what we're trying to do here is put together a framework or a bill of where we're comfortable with, right, where we can get Democrats and Republicans in the House and the Senate, and then try to get the president, of course, to become part of that and get this across the finish line. But that hasn't been the case so far that he's interested, and I'm really hoping that he gets there.
All right. Well, Congressman, really appreciate the time this morning. It's great to have you on. We'll check back with you on the progress on this, and
please do.
Let us know what happens.
I got to get you that bottle, man. I'm gonna.
Thank you, Josh.
You gave me an extra incentive now to get to work.
All right, great.
See you guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, Congressman.
Thank you.
We've been talking with Congressman Josh Gottheimer. He's from New Jersey. Pretty interesting stuff there, guys. What do you make of the Congressman's chances of getting something done in December? Pretty ambitious, it seems to me. What do you think?
Carl, you're the optimist here.
Yeah, listen, he may get a critical mass of people, but only if the White House agrees. It seems to me that, his view, you just heard him say it, Andy. He thinks if he gets in a room with President Trump, they can make the case and Trump could make it happen. It'd be hard to do without it's going to be hard to do without the White House.
It's going to be very hard to do without the White House. That's right. And I think if they can get some framework that Trump can sign on to, then they've got a chance.
And Andy, I should say to our listeners, I mean, Tom loves this country. He would happily buy me a bottle of wine.
Saving Obamacare. Okay.
No, preventing another shutdown.
That part.
Catastrophic. Yeah.
Andy loves shutdowns. He likes divided government.
Oh, God. I am on record. It's my least favorite story in Washington is the shutdown stories that we always have to do. Although usually we don't get to the point where we have a shutdown, and that's what makes it so frustrating to me. We have to talk about it, and then at the last minute they make a deal. And then when they don't, then you've got to talk about the shutdown for 30 days or whatever. So
40.
Yeah, not my favorite stuff. Carl, we were going to talk about this a little earlier. We didn't get to it, but you wanted to talk about crime a little bit. We had this horrendous event in Chicago. Along with the economy, that really is the big issue, don't you think?
It's a big issue for some people. It doesn't cut across all lines equally. But we've had another horrific crime in Chicago. A guy set a woman on fire, a complete stranger, and she's horribly, grievously injured. And it turns out he's one of these guys who's been arrested, 30, 40 times. In August, this year he hit a social worker so hard that she was hospitalized. And August 19th, the prosecutors tried to keep him in jail. Judge let him out. And there's something going on here, which is that it's not just fear of crime. It's this idea that the police catch the criminals, and the courts won't hold them, and they won't hold them accountable. And this has become a partisan issue because this is happening mostly in Democratic-run states and cities. And people in these mayors and governors, not the governors, but the mayors are defending it, and it's indefensible. And that I think it goes to a larger issue of who does government work for, and why are Democrats siding with criminals? That for many years, you remember this, Andy. I mean, the '60s, Richard Nixon ran on Law and Order, and a lot of this was sort of veiled, code language. But we should be on that point now. This is not. Some Democrats like Brandon Johnson still say this, but that's not what's going on. What's going on is Americans want to feel safe, and there's no such thing as a local crime anymore because people see there's footage of this guy buying the gasoline. And people are seeing it, and they're saying, okay, why are we allowing this? We need public policy solutions that make sense, and saying that people who are accused of heinous and violent crimes shouldn't be in jail awaiting trial. That's a non-starter for many people, and yet it's the law of the land in places like New York, Chicago, parts of California. Yeah, I think it's untenable, and it's larger than just crime.
That's your city, Tom.
Yeah, no, and this heinous crime had echoes of what happened in Charlotte. You had a person, as Carl mentioned, who was out, who should never have been let out. I mean, this guy had been arrested 49 times. And yelled, burn bitch or whatever as he set this poor woman on fire. And our mayor was asked about it. He dismissed it as an isolated incident, which I thought was a little tone deaf. He wanted to point to the fact that homicides are down and crime is down. But to Carl's point, you get these kinds of stories and people don't feel safe riding the subway, riding the L here in Chicago. Brandon Johnson was actually asked about it again, and he said, that we need to invest in, homeless and mental health and all of that stuff. And
then do it.
Maybe that's true, but the point is, you need to make the city safe first and foremost. And I think too often some of our leaders in these cities don't have enough sympathy for the victims, don't have enough sort of, they're not attuned to the public in terms of how much crime is an issue for people who are living.
Andy, I'll have a little more on Brandon Johnson a little later.
All right. We'll talk about that later. So, but it is that time. We got about 4 minutes left, guys. So we've got to get to it. I want to get to.
Let's go. It's Friday.
Friday segment.
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious.
So, Tom, what do you got?
I got to put on my glasses for this one. If you guys are watching on YouTube, bear with me. The aforementioned Jack Schlossberg, who is running for New York's 12th congressional district, gave an interview earlier this week on MS Now where he said, quote, President Trump is so obsessed with the Kennedys and the Kennedy name that he caged one and put him in his cabinet, a rabid dog in his cabinet, put a collar on my cousin RFK Jr. and has him there barking, spreading lies and misinformation. Listen, anybody who would talk about a family member like that on national television is that is bad form, and I'm trying to be really generous with my language here. So all I will say is, Jack Schlossberg, you cannot be serious.
Carl, what do you got?
Well, we were talking about Brandon Johnson. He was responding to a question, about crime, and is that Warren Zevon, crime? Oh no, that's Jason Boland, crime and drugs. Anyway, and he said that the real problem with Republicans is that they're sorry they lost the Civil War. And I have a clip on that. I was wondering, maybe it reminded me of John Belushi in Animal House. Does anybody? I don't. Brandon Johnson was on a roll like Belushi. Nobody interrupted him. But if they could have interrupted him and said, no, Mr. Mayor, the Republican Party, that was the party of Lincoln. He was from here in Illinois. The Republican Party was formed to fight slavery.
And they did win the war.
And they won the Civil War.
And they won the Civil War. And
but other than that,
and the
great point.
And the Democrats favored segregation for another 100 years. And the first great civil rights bill was actually signed by Dwight Eisenhower, a Republican, in 1957, and that set in motion all these other civil rights bills. So,
all right.
Brandon Johnson, you cannot be serious.
You cannot be serious. Well, mine is this Afton Ben, her name is. She's a Democrat. She's running for Congress in a special election in Tennessee's 7th congressional district. The election is December 2nd. And it turns out 2 years ago on a podcast, she talked about Nashville, the city she hopes to represent. And this is what she said about the Music City. I hate the city. I hate the bachelorettes. I hate the pedal taverns. I hate country music. I hate all of the things that make Nashville apparently an it city for the rest of the country. So, Afton Ben, you cannot be serious. I don't see how you're going to win that race if you're going after the one part of the district that you might have a chance in, and that's the blue part of Nashville, Tennessee. Anyway, that's our program for today. If you're listening on the podcast apps or watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe, like, and send us a comment. I do read them. It's great to hear from all of you. If you're listening on Megyn Kelly channel on Sirius XM, we'll be back here Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Stick around because Megyn is coming up right after this. I want to thank our producers. I'm Andrew Walworth on behalf of Carl, Tom, and everyone at RCP. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you back on Monday. Have a great weekend.